Hello and welcome to Black Bear Atheist, and today we're going to check out more of Melissa Dougherty, and she's going to answer the question, if God knew that Satan and other angels would rebel, why did he create them? And I believe this woman is a pastor, an apologetics in a sense, and just a Christian YouTuber. So let's get into it.
My 8-year-old asks if God knew that Satan and the other angels would do what they did, why did he create them? Well,
I'm not surprised an 8-year-old asked this question. I did a video that went pretty decent. It did pretty good. Talking about it was a daily dose reacting to a Frank Turek, two videos of Frank Turek, and the 8-year-old that in asking a very interesting question, a deep question. And this 8-year-old asks a question: how did Lucifer think to sin against God if we won't have sinful, if we humans when we get to heaven will have sinful nature in heaven? So how does that work? Will we be really safe in heaven against a sinful thought? A very, very good question and a very, very deep question. Just like this question, if God knew that Satan and the other angels would rebel, why did he create them? These two questions were asked by 8-year-olds. And when I was a child, I also asked crazy questions, intrigued by these things and not really making any sense. Moving on.
golly gee, the first thing that comes to my mind is this kid is a next generation apologist. I love it. Second, I always asked
No, actually, it depends on how you answer the kid. If you actually give an answer to the kid and not shove the kid to a side, probably would become, I guess, an apologetics. No, actually, if you answer the kid, which I don't think you have any answer, we shall see throughout this video whether she does. I don't think you actually have any answer. So if you answer the kid is most likely not going to become an apologetics and see the stupidity in Christianity later on. If you don't answer the kid is still going to probably end up being a skeptical of the religion that the kid is in later on in life. So there's really not a good way. If a kid is asking these questions to begin with, there's not a good way to stop them from being skeptical of this religion. Or you could just continue your indoctrination and hope that they don't get open to things that actually make sense.
the same thing about humanity. Like, why did God create us? I always said that if I could ever ask God just one question, one encompassing question, it would be that. Like, why did you create us? So I understand why this would be a point of curiosity for a child. Now,
Why not just ask him now, since you can apparently talk to God?
why God chooses to create anything has a lot to do with his attributes, specifically his attribute of love. It's not that he was lonely or
No, that doesn't make any sense. His attribute of love. Why would he create everything, including pain and suffering and evil? If his attribute is love, and please don't bullshit me with the idea of free will, because if God already knew from the beginning that this all will happen, then he could have actually not create. Do you not get how that doesn't make any sense? You're saying he created all this because he loved us or because his attribute of love. But if he knows that everything that have happened throughout history, we're talking wars, we're talking evil, we're talking suffering, will happen and not be a result of good or love, then why did he do it?
needed anything. There was always this unity within the Trinity. In fact, I have a really cool video that talks about this. I think it's cool.
I have a cooler video where I talk about how the Trinity is bullshit. Go check that out.
that I loved researching and making. It's about the attributes of God, and I argue that it's his attribute of love that shows that God must be a Trinity. But anyways, to your question, if God knew that terrible things would happen,
What? His attributes show that it is three people and one person at the same. No, we're not even gonna get into the Trinity of bullshit.
why create Satan? Okay, I'm just gonna go where my brain goes with these sorts of things, and hopefully it makes sense and it helps. First,
So you're gonna speak from your ass. It's good to get that out of the way so we can know exactly what we're dealing with.
number one, the Bible does not give a specific answer to this, but this is why it's so good to see how Scripture describes God. And from what we
Of course, the Bible wasn't clear about this. What is the Bible clear about? Slavery? No, you could argue for both sides. Actually, more leaning to having a slave than not having a slave. Oh, hell? You could lean to any side. It's a punishment because God is all loving. Maybe that doesn't make sense. It could just be a place separate from God. You could lean to every single angle that you could think of. Name any topic. Any topic. And when you go in the Bible, you could argue for anything. So what is the Bible clear about? God's character? Oh, is an angry, loving God that can wipe out the entire planet and just save 8 people. Very clear, I see. Very, very clear.
know about him, we can make some conclusions on this. So this doesn't mean that I have the perfect answer to this, but I am going to do my best to answer biblically and logically. There's actually a more philosophical answer to this that I personally find quite fascinating, and it goes like this. Because God is omniscient, which means all-knowing.
Before she finished that, and I could have just let her finish, but I will not. We don't care. No, I don't care about the philosophical. We're talking the Bible here. It should have answer to everything. Nobody cares about your philosophy. Nobody cares about what you find interesting. The Bible should answer all these questions. But does it?
He wasn't surprised by this rebellion. So could God have created a world without Satan? Wouldn't a world without Satan and evil be better than a world like ours? So in other words, is our world the best of all possible worlds? There's this really smart dude from the 17th and 18th century that I'm going to put down here because I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think that's pronounced Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. He said that God knew out of all the infinite possibilities, this world should be the best of all possible worlds. So God has made this type of world a reality over the other possible worlds.
Wrong. Then God is an idiot. Humans make games. I keep giving up this example. Humans make games where you can't just do anything. There's boundaries to what you can do. There's limits to your actions. And you still have free will to do quite a lot of things. That's a human-made games. And you can play the games, you can live in the game, and do a bunch of quests, a bunch of things that are just interesting, and you wouldn't even be bored. And you could still not be going insane and be Hitler. That's a human-made game. Now, this all-knowing, all-powerful God can think of a universe without pain, suffering, death, nuclear bombs. Like, he can't make a universe without any of this. A very smart God. He's a genius. Very amazing God indeed.
However, there was another really smart guy, a Christian analytic philosopher named Alvin Plantinga. His name is much easier to say, and some of you have already heard of him. He had a different idea. He expounded on Leibniz's point, but he said that there cannot be a best world, because the logic went for him that there could just be one more beautiful mountain, right? Or one more morally righteous person that can make the world better. So Plantinga concluded that there is no such thing as a best world. And it's also worth noting here that even if God does not create anything, he alone will exist as the greatest good. Therefore, God is purely compelled to create a good world and not a best world.
And I'm gonna stop her there. We're halfway through the video, and I must mention she has not answered the question. The question being, if God knew that Satan and the other angels would rebel, why did he create them? This is not about hurt. This is not about our world. This is about the supernatural. We're talking about these beings that are immaterial, timeless, and all that. Because all of these people that we're even talking about, the spirits that we're talking about, are outside of our reality. They're not the universe. Because Satan was already before the universe. He was with God at like the beginning. Or close to the beginning. It was way before humans were made. Like that entire storyline, though it revealed in the Revelation, it was made before humans were made. So she has not answered the question. She's so far dancing around. Something they all know really how to do.
Are you with me so far? Hopefully you are, because I think this is really cool. So, this world is a good world since God has offered freedom to man to love him freely. The same freedom was offered to the angels as well, like Satan. He abused this freedom and rebelled against God. So here's the point. A world without freedom is not a good world. C.S. Lewis wrote about this as well in the book Problem of Pain. Basically, God has created a good world in such a way that the goodness of this world could be perverted into evil that's contingent on mankind's rebellion or when creation is distorted. As long as God offers freedom to his creation, we would possess the ability to do good or evil. So
I am gonna stop right there. Again, it seems like she's just going on a rant. We don't care about the best world that God could have made. That's an interesting topic, interesting idea, but nobody cares about that. The question is, if God knew that Satan and the other angels would rebel, why did he create them? We're not saying, oh, could have God created another universe or where it's good and like, of course he could have, but that's not the question. You're getting distracted and venturing into something that really doesn't apply. If God knew that Satan and the other angels would rebel in this good creation or whatever it's trying to make, why did he actively create them? That's a choice that God could have made.
the question is not necessarily about Satan's existence. The question should be,
Uh, yes, the question is about Satan's existence to begin with, because Satan was made by God, and that free will, the will to even be created, was made by God. So the most important thing in Satan's existence, which is his nature, his character, was made by God. So how in the fucking world are you still talking about free will? I mean, the only person with free will in this entire ideology is God. As much as people would try to say like Satan was rebelling against God, actually, if you think about it, God made Satan rebel against him. It was made in his nature to rebel.
about the presence of freedom. Okay, so I think that was more of like a brainy response to this question, but if I were answering this for a kid, let me put this a way that a kid might understand. If God is all
I swear to God, if she says something just weird and nobody would understand, it would be quite annoying. Let's hear her out.
knowing, this means that he can foresee all possible universes that could exist where real love can exist. And what this reminds me of is the scene in the movie Endgame, where one of the characters is looking through time to see if there's any way that they can save the universe. And what's interesting,
Okay, I was gonna let her finish, but any common sense human, any person with like two brain cells could have seen the end game as stupid. Clearly, it's just a movie and fantasy. If that's what you want to compare your God to, then go ahead, because they're both the same thing to begin with. There were other possibilities of things that could have been done to actually end Thanos. Just saying, there were many things that could have been done to end Thanos, including Doctor Strange actually being the one to kill Thanos to begin with. There were literally other universes that happened. So there wasn't just one solution. He chose one. And also, Doctor Strange was looking into the future. It's not the same as God. Again, the movie did not make it's not supposed to make sense. It's a Marvel movie. It's a fantasy. And if that's what you want to compare your God to, go straight ahead, because they are about the same thing.
Thing is that he says, yes, there's only one way. But spoiler alert, it involves the sacrifice of someone they care about. But there's still a way. Now, take that to
I just realized that. Is that like a Jesus reference in a sense? Oh my god. Also, anyone else could have snapped their fingers. It wasn't just Iron Man. And also, they were dumb, actually. They were quite dumb. There were so many things in the end game that could have. You could literally tweak it. If it actually was reality, you could have tweaked it. Again, this is fantasy. Fantasy are not supposed to make every sense. Like, I think I watched a video talking about how Godzilla, the big Godzilla, couldn't have possibly be on the planet Earth, or couldn't have possibly like be able to move or something along those lines. Like, they're not supposed to make sense, people.
a cosmic level. If God is looking throughout time, right, and being almighty, he knows that real love can only exist with free will. So if he's looking
And I'm sorry for pausing this too much. Just one more point. Doctor Strange wasn't looking at through time and space, looking at the other dimensions. He was just looking at one timeline. His timeline. Looking at different possibility from his own timeline. He's not looking at different dimensions in the multiverse. Seeing what other people did, but just his timeline. His hurt. That's what he's looking at. Not other hurts, not other planets, just is. That is good to point out. God is looking at other dimensions. Everything all at once. Which, back to my point, shows that there were other possibilities. Because when you look at the Multiverse of Madness, that movie, it shows that there were other things that other Doctor Strange did to defeat Thanos. And in some aspect, Thanos was destroyed single-handedly by Doctor Strange.
time, and he's trying to create a good world, and he's looking at all the possible worlds that can exist where real love can exist, this is that world because there's freedom. He knows that real love can only exist with free will. So in this light, what I want to do is draw attention to the fact that God creates, and what he creates is good. He created all things and he created them free, and those are good. When it goes south is when what God created chooses to rebel against him. In God's providence, which
I apologize again. That is not God. That's not the creation choosing. Because they were made by God. If you design a computer to do what a computer does, you're not going to say, well, what it does now, because I designed it to do that, is choosing to do that. Like, no. No. That's not how it works. Humans are designed to sin. Literally to sin. It's in our nature. God made us to sin. The devil was made to rebel. So, everything was made by God, meaning he designed every single person. You can't just say God made them and the fact that they have free will is why they went against God. Again, there is no free will. Just one example. If God can see the future, if God can see the future, let me just put it this way, if God can see the future, and each and every person has a future that God already see. He made them. But let's even forget the fact that he made them. If he's telling people and people are prophesying of the future and the future cannot change, that means nobody has free will to choose anything because the future is already stationary. If the future is stationary and none of it can change, it means people that are atheists will die an atheist and they will never change their heart. So there is no free will. They don't have a will to change. They would never change. It's the point of that's why it's just pointless why Christians would even preach to any other people. Because it's already determined who is going to go to heaven and hell. It's not that just God knows it's going to happen. It's like he knows it's going to happen. He caused it to happen, and because it's going to happen, and there is no other way to change it. There's only one future, no alternate future, just only one timeline. It shows that there is no free will.
Which is basically God foreseeing things to come and using it for his purposes. He lets Satan exercise this freedom. Then we can see how this rolls over into humanity. God's plan of salvation was a plan before we existed, and we're saved from something. And this
Alright, I think that's as much of a line of reason that I can take. If God knew that Satan and other angels would rebel, why did he create them? The answer that she gave is because God is so loving, he had to create creatures with free will. And I point out that humans make games that there is still free will in a sense, and you don't have the freedom to just do whatever you want to do. I mean, let me put it this way: God created man, and we can't fly. We can just fly. We can float over this. We can just fly in the outer space. We can just go anywhere. That's a limitation. That's limitation to our free will. That's just one aspect of the things that I'm saying. Like, there's so many things that God could have done. This is why none of this makes sense. There's so many things that God could have done to stop evil, stop suffering, stop pain, but he did nothing. And this is just an excuse. Oh, because he's so loving, he has to create he has to create a terrible world. He's so loving that he has to give us free will, which is an illusion because we don't have free will. The Bible was pretty clear on this. I need to do a video on why Christians would even think they have free will. Why people in the world would think they have free will when there's so many things that affect their decisions. In reality, you don't have free will. In your fairy tale in the Bible, you don't have free will. If your God exists, your God that is described in the Bible, none of us have free will. And that's where I will end it today. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, like and subscribe. Have a lovely day.